Good morning, everyone. Kelly, we're back here in Paris.
In
You,
Paris,
you actually have a
I
croissant
have
this
a
morning.
croissant.
So
it's a very large croissant.
per the name of the podcast,
I know.
Kelly is having a giant croissant to celebrate the Olympics this morning.
I do enjoy how we're on like day whatever we're on 12, and we forget that we talk right over the intro.
Yeah, we do.
We're always talking as we start every day.
Every day, we're just chit-chatting about something else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No. We have to get, you got to get yourself revived for Olympic Day.
Is that what the croissant's
That was
for?
the croissant was for, yeah. I saved it.
Is it working? Oh, you don't know yet.
Well, I probably shouldn't eat it while we're recording.
I had a pain au chocolat this morning, so I'm ready. I've had mine already.
Oh, we were talking about berets when we came in.
Oh,
That's
yes.
Berets. Yes.
Yes.
All right. Important topics, guys. Well, last night you guys went to Canada House.
We did.
And so I want to hear all about it.
Okay, so after going to Team USA House, which was like,
and we obviously all knew nothing could live up.
Well, I assumed, okay, it was, first of all, it was like a 350 euro spend experience. It was like in that Napoleon.
Right. No other team
exchange.
House is $350 to get into, to be clear.
Right. So like, I feel like my expectations of like every other team house from there was like kind of down. So I feel like I went in with like my expectations being low of Team Canada House, and it was actually amazing.
Okay.
Yeah. So it wasn't like in a Napoleon
palace.
But like everything inside, like it was in a huge space.
Where was it?
They were, oh gosh.
Okay, I'm not asking for like an address. I'm saying what kind of a building, Sarah?
Yeah, like more like, so it was like more in the outskirts of Paris. You were like in kind of more an industrial area, right? And there were like, it was in some kind of building design, maybe for conferences.
Interesting.
That would be my guess.
Okay.
It had like it was like a cool building, but it was a modern building.
Okay.
And so then, yeah, they had like multiple floors in this big, and it was a big open space. There was food. The food was paid for, so that like you had to pay for it.
Oh, so it's
right. So there was like different.
Yeah. So USA, you pay that much, you get free food.
Right. Yeah. So there wasn't free food, but there was food. Right. There was a room where the Arkells were playing, so there was like a concert going on in one section. Like if you could have a concert in one section and multiple other things, like you get an idea how big it was, right? Okay. They had like a merch section. They had a whole Lululemon store in there. There was an area where there was an activation that Ella and Millie went to, where you like Air Canada would print you out. It was basically like a photo booth. So the four of them have like the two of them have like those four little photos like you would get in a photo booth, but it's like printed onto like a boarding card for Air Canada. Nice. Like we also did like an activation for some of the sponsors where we were like basically posing for a selfie with like Ritz crackers essentially.
Okay.
On an iPad, and then like they gave after that they give you like
your Ritz
free
crackers,
food, and you get this little card with this picture. It's supposed to be one person at a time, but like we were all just crammed in to like the selfie.
All right.
Spot.
Okay.
Yeah. So there were like some things to do. Then there were like the side rooms, like you know how in Team USA House there were side rooms where you could like
sit
and watch things in a quiet area, or you could go to like a viewing area where there's lots of people cheering. So we saw like our hammer thrower Canadian win. And so there was like, you know, big cheers throughout the house. So same kind of vibe like that. The other thing that was really cool was like, and I think this is like a smaller country vibes, is that like all of our Olympians were just like in there.
Oh, really?
Just like milling around with everybody. Yeah. Whereas I think like if you're a bigger country in the
Simone Biles was not milling around.
Simone Biles was not just like wandering through USA House. Yeah. But like we saw our basketball players. We saw like multiple other like we saw like people that we recognized.
Oh wow. People that we recognized.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Okay. It's funny because like apparently, I mean, somebody sent me a list of all the houses after we were talking about this last week. And I've like Team USA is like very much like the biggest one and the most expensive one, but most of them are like $20 or $30 for the public to get into these days. Obviously they all started as like just for athletes, and now they're kind of for everybody. Club France is France's, but when they sent me this list, there's one for Africa, like all of the African countries came together.
Resources.
Yeah, pool resources. And Mongolia has a house.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Ireland. So Steve has competed for like the Irish national team, so he wanted to go to the Ireland. Team Ireland, whatever they're calling it.
Like?
They like rented out the back of an Irish bar.
That sounds about right.
Right, which is maybe what I was expecting. And we showed up, and then it was also one of the things where like you only had to buy a ticket after a certain time at night. Like before that, it was free.
Yeah.
So we showed up after
Oh.
this time,
Mhm.
and they were like, "Oh no, we're not ready yet." Like, oh
We're
no,
not
not ready
ready.
yet. They were like still setting up the DJ booth or whatever. And they had like a little. They were selling. I mean, they have very nice merch. It's Ireland. It's cute. But yeah, they were selling it out of like the office.
Mhm.
They're like taking over the bar office. So it's very funny. Team Ireland House is open until 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. The bar. You can stay.
So wait, when you arrived there at what time?
No, we arrived like early. Like, we went before tracks. We went at like 6:30 or something.
Okay,
but
so
after
you arrived at 6:30 and they weren't ready and they weren't set up.
Right,
But
but-
if you'd got at 4 a.m., they would have been
They
like,
would've been ready.
we're ready for you.
And apparently the rule at 5 a.m. wasn't that you have to go home. You just have to leave and you can come back in.
What? Also, there's some kind of law that they're
I guess
serving
they have to
breakfast at
leave.
5:01.
Yeah,
kind of
something like
situation.
that. So, but like, it was fitting. All the houses, they have their vibes. Yeah.
That fits. Yeah. And ours definitely fit with the Canada vibe. Mhm.
Low key.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I would just say like we had like Canadian brands and it was still like French. Like there were very much a lot of like, because they were speaking French like into us, yeah, it just had Canadian vibes. I don't even know how to explain that.
Okay. Canadian vibes.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. Okay. All right. Canadian vibes don't need to be explained. Noted. It is funny, or it is interesting when you look around at like who is like Lululemon is a Canadian company, and they're like the.
I bought my hat. I know
Right.
you can't see it because you're listening to a podcast, but I bought a very nice
Lululemon hat.
Team
Yeah,
Canada
but it's
hat.
like so Lululemon's like the Canadian team outfitter. On is the Swiss one, and they're a Swiss company, and so you do kind of see like all the different brands, even though they're like all international brands now. They're kind of like they sponsor their own countries.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting.
It was cool. We actually went to a Lululemon like in Paris yesterday. Before, like, not the one at Team Canada House. So we've been to 2 Lululemons
we just keep going to
yesterday.
Lululemon.
It's a very Canadian day for us. But I was surprised, like, how much of the store was taken up by, like, Canadian gear.
Yeah,
just
like
in, the middle of, like,
Nike,
Paris.
The big Nike on the champs is also, like, all Team USA stuff.
Right.
So, because Nike's a US company. So it's, like, I feel like it's, like, interesting how everybody gets all to their
as
own
they
countries.
should. A little, what do you call it? A little support for your own home
Who's
country.
sponsoring? Who is the French supplier then?
Ooh, Coq Sportif.
Oh, not
Yeah.
Monoprix. I feel like that would be Monoprix's the
They're
best
not
thing.
a sporting brand, Kelly. You were telling us. So Kelly, Monoprix is a supermarket. To be
I know.
clear.
Monoprix is a better version of Target. Is the best thing about Paris.
So
Anyone who has ever,
Kelly was
gone.
telling us how amazing
Monoprix
Monoprix
is
was,
fantastic.
which I just know as a supermarket. So yesterday we went to the upstairs of Monoprix, and I look around to the clothing
everything.
section, and I was like, "What?"
Did you wander around?
A little, yeah.
This isn't just me. There was like this whole article in like the New York Times about how Monoprix is like the
Monoprix?
secret fashion source for French women.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Maybe it's just our little local Monoprix.
maybe you didn't go to the right Monoprix. Yeah,
we just need a better Monoprix.
Obviously. All right, we will talk about actual sports today.
Okay.
After this ad break, we will talk about the urban park, water polo, track again.
Here at Feisty, we are dedicated to partnering with brands that are mission-driven and having an impact. That's why we are thrilled to be supported by Joni, a company creating game-changing period care for everybody. Many conventional menstrual products rely on plastic made from petroleum, a non-renewable resource. Did you know that in the US, approximately 12 billion pads and 7 billion tampons are discarded annually, and these products generate over 200,000 tons of plastic waste per year? It can take 500 to 800 years for a single petroleum-based plastic disposable pad to decompose due to its materials, and tampons with applicators also contribute to plastic waste, which can take centuries to break down. Joni is dedicated to bring the wasteful and antiquated feminine hygiene industry into the 21st century. Using a design-led approach, Joni's personal care products and commercial dispensers provide the most innovative and accessible period and leak care solutions in the world. Organic and free of harmful levels of chemicals or irritating fragrances, Joni's pads and tampons support menstrual health and the environment, while allocating at least 2% of revenues to break the cycle of period poverty, dismantle menstrual stigmas, and empower periods. Now that's what we call 21st century period care. Ditch uninspiring and irritating feminine hygiene products and say hi to Joni's silky soft, super absorbent, and toxin-free pads and tampons. Joni pads feature a wrapper and protective layer made from cornstarch, a plant-based material, making them biodegradable and compostable in the right conditions. Joni tampons are made with organic cotton. They're compostable, including the wrapper, which is made of cellulose. Choosing sustainable period products isn't just a trend, it's a movement. You can get 10% off your order with the code FEISTY at getjoni.com. That's 10% off at GETJONI.com with the code FEISTY.
All right, but you guys actually went to sports. You didn't just go to Canada
saw
House.
sports. Okay, we had a very exciting afternoon yesterday. We saw skateboarding at the Urban Park.
The final, the gold.
The women, can we call them?
Even though they're all
women?
like 14.
Yeah. I mean, it was freaking amazing. Like, just like actually like being that close and having like that level of competition. Like, I've never been to a skateboarding competition before. And seeing them like do all the tricks and flip around. Like, I don't know anything about it, right? But there's clearly like things that they have to hit. Like, they have to hit certain
right.
like they still even in that one, they're still hitting like rails and they have to do certain things. And Millie is a big skateboarding fan. So her girl Sky Brown, who's like a big fan.
Her girl. She knows her.
I've been told that she's a fan favorite. She's 16 years old and she got a bronze.
And I understand like, so they're all like teenagers, just because of how like skating's developed, or how girls skating has developed. Like they kind of all got into it in this generation. Because I think the girl who won was like 14.
She was 14. Yeah. And it was like actually kind of like interesting to, she was like pretty tiny. Like they were like kind of different because they're like they're at that age, right? Like I was thinking about that, like going through puberty while having like a, what'd you call it? Like an athletic career.
Yeah.
Like that where you're aiming for the Olympic Games. Like that's kind of crazy. Like I think of my own daughter who's 13, right?
Yeah. You hope it doesn't you hope it doesn't mess things up, right? Because like all we know now, or with everything we know now about athlete development and women, like there tends to be like, we need to like not expect a linear progression. Like that is a very male view of like athletic development, right? And so everything we know now is that like a lot of times women can be even faster and better later in their 20s if they like accept that there's a right, if they don't try and like just train through like a slight dip in their late teens and then adjust and everything. So you wonder about these sports where they are peaking at like, or not peaking, maybe ultimately the skateboarders will be really good at 28, but right now they're 14, 15.
Yeah.
And you hope that they don't like.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I think that's like a lot of what you said about that, like the sport development sort of applies. Well, we know it applies to endurance sport, right? Or it applies to like any sport that involves like an engine, VO2 max, like.
Yeah, I mean, you even think about like gymnastics. Back when we were little, we watched gymnastics, right? And they all were like 14, 15, 16.
Yes.
And they were all doing the thing where they were like hoping not to go through puberty. And now you see the gymnasts and they're like in their mid 20s and like early 20s, late 20s, and they're much stronger and healthier. Like, and so it's like clearly the key to like a longer career in that sport was, adjust, like, right? It was like the changes that have happened in that sport.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, you're like,
And I think, that's interesting because that sport has like gymnastics has a more like aesthetic expectation, especially back then. Right. Where it was like, I just like, this is something I've repeated again and again, but like, I love seeing that, like how strong the female gymnasts look now versus like, I remember being shocked as like a teenager myself, or as like someone in my 20s watching those gymnasts. They looked so almost emaciated sometimes when I was younger. So that's really cool to see. It's windy here. We have slamming doors.
So you guys went to but that was at the Urban Park. Yeah. As we've talked about, the Urban Park has like BMX, 3x3, skateboarding. I don't remember what is the fourth thing over there?
There's two kinds of skateboarding.
There
is a fourth, I think, from what I can tell, I think the fourth like stage area setup is for like demonstration. So we saw actually like a jump rope demonstration.
Oh, interesting.
Not yesterday, but the day before. Yeah, which was kind of cool. And we wondered if like maybe jump rope isn't the next like,
oh my God, no,
Olympic sport.
I mean, sure, I'm sure they're very,
cool.
very good. I'm not saying they're not good. I'm just saying there are lots of things that, are really cool.
There are lots of things that are really cool.
Yeah. They're not all Olympic sports, right? That's just the reality.
But yeah, the vibe, honestly, the vibe of skateboarding is like very, very different
than
than anything that I've seen so far. Like, because actually like the vibe of, even within the Urban Park setting, the vibe of like 3x3 basketball was like not too dissimilar from like basketball, because it has a root somewhere else, right? Whereas like this felt like, I don't know, like the crowd was louder,
Hmm.
or like whooping. There was
Okay,
more
I was
whooping.
gonna say, I was like, I don't know. I have been there in like the swim stadium when it was France versus the US, and that crowd was deafening.
There was some whooping.
There was some whooping. Okay.
I feel like it was more random whoops because like you
Random
have
whoops,
okay,
okay.
imagine you have like you just got like a 14-year-old girl on in a skateboarding like
Mhm.
ramp, just like hitting a trick, hitting another trick, hitting another trick, and then falling. The other thing is like
Sure,
falling
sure,
is so much part of the sport
sure.
that like it's like ooh and then woo and then like, it's happening like, very quickly, So yeah, I just felt like, and I think they were probably like what I've really noticed about everything I've been to is that in the smaller venues, you really notice how much like friends and family of the actual athletes are in
There.
the stands. Like,
Mm.
especially in some of these smaller venues, you can see them like in these pockets, right? And so I think that's true with skateboarding too, except the friends are like teenagers.
Sure.
Right?
Interesting.
So I feel like that kind of changed the vibe a little bit too.
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, there's definitely like once you start paying attention, like you can kind of notice there are friends and family sort of everywhere, right? They usually have matching shirts. That's the clue.
Well, they are everywhere, but with 66,000 people in a stadium, they get
Right.
more absorbed versus like, in the
Right.
smaller venues.
Yeah, it's interesting. Breaking's the other thing at Urban
Mhm,
Park.
that's what it is.
On
Yeah.
that last stage.
Yeah.
They're just filling it with jump rope until breaking starts. That's what's happening here.
Jump rope demonstrations. Although the jump rope, honestly, like seeing a guy doing like flips, like literally doing gymnastics
Sure.
while skipping, and then
yeah.
landing his like triple under or whatever he's done, whatever he's been doing with the rope at the same time, kind of wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sarah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yep. That's the thing.
Okay,
I went to water polo. It was good. It was fun. The Canadians lost the first game I saw by a lot.
Pains me.
They were not very physical.
Right. Water polo is a rough sport.
No, water polo is. The Canadians were not. And I might have held them back. I need to throw some more elbows. Because the next game was Italy versus Netherlands. And I swear to God, there were two women who were just spent the whole, like, even if the ball wasn't by them, even when play wasn't happening, they were just trying to dunk each other. They spent the whole game trying to drown each other.
Okay.
I was trying to get video just to be like, yep, still trying to drown each other. Like,
I definitely I have a little bit of trouble getting my head around physical sports just because I don't have the desire to do that. Like anything like a jujitsu or like boxing or like I don't want to like really be like wrestling or beating up another person. So I when I put myself in their position, I'm like, it takes a little bit of mental effort, right? It's like double or triple when you add water. Right. So like when there's like potential drowning involved, like I don't want to wrestle someone on the opposite team in the deep end while treading water. that just I don't know.
Terrible.
I mean, but then sometimes like I respect those sports more.
Yeah.
That I actually find have trouble getting my head around. So like, well, thank God someone else can get their head around it. It's not down to me.
It was very physical because it was also very, very close. It was we're in quarterfinal semis of all these tournaments that are kind of down to it. And so it was a quarter and it was just going back and forth. It was like one side would score, the other side would score, right? It was it didn't even get more than a point up until like the very end of the last quarter. And so the fans were like very deeply into water polo. Like they clearly knew lots about water polo. Yeah. And yeah, there were competing chants for Italy and Holland, is what obviously they all refer to the Netherlands as. Competing chanting. I really wanted to see a fight
in the stands.
I thought that would be great. It'd be fantastic.
That tells us more about your mood. I think
I've seen very few fights so far.
There's been no, even with like multiple day on day of like hundreds of thousands of people watching sport, and we still haven't seen any
fights.
Any fights in the stands. So I mean, is it even sport? Yeah.
It was good though. I mean, we are down to all these like tournament finals where it's like make or break. So obviously that gets way more dramatic. We are like, obviously we've seen a lot of sports. You are at the point where you're like, half the people make it through to the final, whatever. Right? Like it's ones that are very like you have to deliver are much more exciting. Water polo is interesting. It's also one of those sports where I don't know. Did you ever play water polo?
I didn't know.
Yeah, I played it some as a kid. Like I don't know how to explain there's been a lot of talk about how like women's uniforms tend to still have like an aesthetic element to them as opposed to just a performance element.
Yeah.
Water polo is not like that.
Oh,
Is what I'm
really?
trying, right? Like
They're
water
like
polo is
it's like performance
it's
only?
deeply performance based and
Yeah.
like it's very physical and it's very like it doesn't like no one cares how they look in water
Okay, I
polo,
kinda
right?
love that.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like very like it's just the it's like about the sport.
Right.
So it's very yeah. So it's fun. It's cool. There are also you know how there are ball people on like tennis courts to get the balls.
Oh, yeah. There's
Yeah.
like
So there are people on the side in swimsuits ready to jump in and get the balls that go like
How
behind the
did we
net.
get that job? That sounds fun.
And they're like clearly ex water polo players based on how they throw the ball back to the side.
Right.
But it's very yeah. So that is some of these volunteers' job is to sit
Is to like be
and they sit in a
ball people
robe to stay dry and then they like take it off
and
and jump
dive in.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
So that was pretty entertaining. And then we went from there to track, which by the time we got out of the barricades had to involve an Uber because I didn't even know where we got funneled out of.
Got barricaded
We got barricaded in
I
again.
feel like what you told us this morning before the show was like because you've been complaining obviously about barricades all week.
Barricades all week.
And then this morning you finally like literally got barricaded in and couldn't escape.
Yeah. So
like for the first time.
Here's one of the things I don't quite understand about well, there are many things I don't understand about the barricade situation. One of the things I don't understand about the ins and outs of the stadiums is I actually have had no lines getting into stadiums. It's been very smooth getting in.
Yeah.
They clearly have like many entrance points when you're getting in. And then when you come out, they've like closed off all those entrance points and they're trying to funnel 60,000 people through one spot. And you're like, guys, this is not how you're supposed to. This is not basic emergency preparation. Like you're supposed to disperse everyone on the out and funnel them on the in.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't make sense.
It's also like counterintuitive because I think like I automatically like my brain is automatically wanting to like egress the same way I ingress.
Right.
You know? And so when they're like pushing you another way, like you're like, no, the exit's that way. And I find I'm like, did I not? Like, is it me?
Yeah.
Which direction are we going? How do I get back to the metro?
Right. You're like, well, my metro's over there. And they're like, no, we barricaded that. But I just don't. I honestly like don't quite understand from like I'm sure I know there are like security emergency personnel to figure all this out, but it makes no sense to me because it goes against all of my understanding of how you exit.
Like how soon is the next group coming in? Like it's
not
to
soon.
Do with that?
No, like track this. I've been to track every goddamn night, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing after track. Track ends at 10:30 p.m. But they funnel 60,000 people. Like they barricade off every street around. And they all make you go through like one thing. And so then you end up at a train station and you're like, I guess I'm getting on this train. I don't even know what train it is. I don't know where it goes. I'm getting on it, which is fine. The train part is fine. But I don't understand. I just don't understand. If someone listening can explain why, from a security perspective, it makes sense to barricade everyone as they exit through fewer exits than they came in. So that's what happened with water polo was we were leaving and they barricaded everyone and then you're kind of following everyone. Yeah. And then and then we must have hit like literally thousands of people must have hit another barricade because suddenly the whole crowd just stops. Oh. And you're like, oh, that's not good. Like, So we had to Uber to get to track.
I mean,
you're like, I give up.
That's cool. It was like, it's sort of like that one day when we were trying to leave triathlon, remember? And we looked and this was like actually in the metro. So there were no barricades involved. Well, there were like barricades in that you were going to an underground tunnel. Right. And it was just like a bunch, like 10,000 people just stopped in a tunnel. Right. You know, they're like, let's not go in that way. Let's find a different underground tunnel.
Track. So I have been to 4 days of track now, which was not my original plan. You obviously took some of your tickets because you guys were sick. And I mean, I liked like track. I've seen something very exciting every night. So it's not like it's not exciting. But when you're talking about skateboarding is different. Track is not. Track is 100%. Right. What you expect track to be
is the bread and butter of the Olympics, like swimming and track, right? Like it has to be what you expect it to be. That's the brand.
Yeah. It's still like fascinating to me how much, and I know we've said this before too, like how, like there are literally like officials that were out there stopping them from warming up too far in this direction on the track. And you're like, what do you care? These are the 10 best 1500 meter runners in the world. Let them run however far they want to run up and down this straightaway. Like,
that's so weird.
Right? It's very track to be like, no.
Okay, so what were the most exciting moments of the night?
Yeah, so last night was good. Obviously, we did see your Canadian win the hammer throw. Hammer throw is crazy, if you ever seen it, because they spin. And like, I would say like a third of the time when they release it, they miss and it goes into the net.
That net, yeah.
Which sounds like terrifying if that thing came like back at you.
Apparently, we're like a hammer throwing nation. I feel like I've watched a lot of hammer throw, so it's probably because the CBC Olympics coverage throws a lot of hammers. Throws a lot of hammers.
Okay.
Yes.
We saw the 400 hurdle semis, which is only semis, but obviously has like kind of two of the big stars of the game, Sydney McLaughlin and Femke Bowl. I never seen Sydney McLaughlin run in person. She was like so far ahead.
Really?
Like 10 meters ahead of the next person. And she didn't look like she was running.
Right.
Hard.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You're
when
like,
they don't look like, when they're like cruising along in their semi.
That was something. We saw the steeplechase, the women's steeplechase, which was it was like exciting, and it was a very fast race. It was very strung out, and it was exciting up front. But I think I was telling you, the most exciting thing in the stadium was probably like, this is one of those interesting things. Like, there are national records being run like all the time in the track stadium for all these different countries.
Right.
And that's not going to make like Olympic news. That's not going to make like your broadcast at home. Yeah. And so in the stadium, the French woman got fourth, and she set a European record in the steeplechase.
Oh, cool. Sorry, there's someone whistling outside.
She set a European record in the steeplechase, but she also was like coming from behind because it was like the Ethiopians and Kenyans in the front. And this like huge gap, and she was very, very far back. And so on the last couple laps, she's like making her way past people and passing people. And the stadium's going nuts. Amazing. And they're going nuts. Like, at first you're like, what are they cheering for? Because like the finish is like over there. Yeah. You're like, what's happening?
Yeah.
So that was really cool. That was actually like really fun. And the 200 meter, Gabby Thomas won, who is awesome. I don't know if everybody knows Gabby Thomas. She went to Harvard. She has like a public health master. She like works in public health also, like in her free time. And so she won the 200, and they gave us all these little light up bracelets when you came in.
Okay, cool. Like the Taylor Swift concert.
Apparently. And you have no control over when they light up. They light up at a set time. So they lit up for the 200, and they turned off all these lights, and everything started flashing, and it was a whole thing.
Cool. That's exciting.
It was fun. The most exciting race was the 1500 men's. I don't know
which I watched from Canada House.
It was very dramatic.
Sofa in an air conditioned
from a sofa in an air conditioned. The part that was funny, and this is like, not to be super American, was that everyone in the stadium was there for Josh Kerr, the British guy, or Jacob Ingebrigtsen, the Norway guy, and then the American snuck by on the inside, and like on the inside, and
like I was like, why was he not boxed out at that point? Like
he tried to go on the inside, and then they cut him off, and he waited, and then he went.
He just like went.
He went, and Steve and I were like jumping down, screaming, and the whole section around it is literally just sort of like, what just happened?
Yeah,
like that. Like you could tell the whole stadium was like, what?
He snuck in on the inside. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was really fun. So it's not like track has been, we have seen very exciting things every night, like very exciting races. It is just like a long day. It's a long adventure, and they really don't sell enough food for how long.
Oh my gosh. Don't get me started on that. One thing about skateboarding was that it was not long.
It was not, that's
like when we were a little bit late, I mean, we got sent the wrong direction to our seats. It was a whole thing, but like you didn't want to miss it because they did 3 runs each. There weren't that many in it in the first place in this final. And so I think we only saw half of it being like 20 minutes late.
Right. Whereas some of these events, your ticket says 5 p.m., but really nothing starts till 6:30.
Yeah.
And you're like, so you have to like go and look up the schedule, and they don't put the schedule on your ticket. You have to Google. We met up with a friend, and they wanted to go in at like 6 p.m. And I was like, the first event isn't until 7:30. Like, I'm not walking into that stadium before that.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, how do you know? And I was like, well, you have to Google the Olympic schedule and look it up. So.
Yeah. Because often you're sitting in the heat. I think the heat has, and the heat and the uncomfortable seats too. I've got 2 to 3 hours in me.
Okay.
For that. That's what I feel.
Yeah. That's my capacity too these days. I also have learned though, you can bring a whole fucking meal in.
You can.
Oh yeah. So I brought like salads
with 2 days left.
Pasta.
It's good to know.
Wraps. Yeah. Fascinatingly. Yeah.
Have we talked about this? Because it's like, if you're wondering why you need to bring food into a sporting event,
they literally like don't sell. I mean, they sell. So there are minimal concessions. It's fascinating. There are no drinks. There are like no alcoholic drinks, which is weird. No, I don't. It's just weird at a sporting event to me. There's very limited food. Like your options are like hot dog. I lived off hot dogs for like 48 hours until I learned you could bring food in, and then they run out. And they
Yeah.
close 30 minutes before the end of the session.
At the urban park, there's about 3 different booths with like a little, like this small menu. And what's also fascinating to me is that like, and this is, it's still, because it's in France, a mostly French crowd. So obviously the French crowds don't feel like this is odd, because there's also like short lines. Like I would have thought if there's like minimal concession that there's going to be like lines
Right. No, there's not
like
that.
out the door, and there's not. Like, so people are obviously showing up not expecting to be fed, whereas like to me that's part of the experience. Like,
Right. I would
you
expect
have
there
a
to be food.
beer, you have some food,
Yeah. No,
and
there's
you're
no
going
food.
to the game kind
Yeah.
of thing. But yeah,
Very
no.
strange.
Mhm.
And they do run out. Like what event I was at where I was like, oh, well, can I get a panini? And they're like, oh, no. And I was like, well, can I get a cookie? And they were like, no. And I was like, what do you have left? Like,
I have to tell you though, yesterday after like we sat there for probably an hour and a half in the sun, like it was very hot. We were all like in puddles of sweat on plastic chairs.
sure.
And so coming out of that, I was like, I need water. And we had like the best tasting
Water. There
carbonated
you go.
lime
There you
water
go.
I've ever had in my
There
life.
you go. So
yeah, it created a very special experience.
But you can bring entire meals in. And weirdly, this doesn't cause a choke point. Getting into the stadium's fine with your. I brought a giant bag from Monoprix. It was fine.
Right. No problem.
No problem.
Okay.
All right. We will talk about what we're still looking forward to after this last ad.
If you're like us, you're totally inspired by Katie Ledecky and Summer McIntosh and more ready than ever to up your swim training. So let's take a minute to talk about hair and skincare for swimmers. You've probably asked yourself questions like, how can I keep my hair healthy and hydrated as a swimmer? How can I avoid my skin feeling itchy and dry after being in the pool? And how can I get rid of those pesky goggle marks around my eyes? Enter TryHard. TryHard has pre- and post-swim solutions designed to reduce the absorption of pool and ocean chemicals into your hair and skin. We love using TryHard's pre- and post-swim conditioner before and after every swim to keep our hair feeling great. TryHard also has a bunch of other products useful for swimmers, like their pre- and post-swim eye gel, which totally works for getting rid of those pesky goggle marks and puffy eye feeling, while providing hydration and a cooling effect. TryHard products are vegan, dermatologically tested, and packaged in recycled plastic. Whether you're swimming in the pool, the ocean, or maybe even the Seine, take care of your hair and skin with TryHard. Use the code FEISTYGAMES for 22% off site-wide at tryhard.co. Plus, you'll get an extra 5% off during sales on top of the already discounted price. That's Feisty Games for 22% off at tryhard.co. Historically, athletic footwear has been designed, researched, and tested for men. Brands have relied on the shrink it and pink it approach to sell male shoes to female customers. That's why we are so excited Heddas is working with us on our Paris coverage. Heddas is building high-performance, technical running shoes for women from the ground up. They operate from a purely female perspective, which we love, and their mission is to ensure the female running experience gets the funding, research, and recognition it deserves. Heddas has unlocked the science behind women's biomechanics through dedicated research and creates better shoes for women's performance. Some of Heddas' special features include a lower ankle collar to reduce rubbing on women's ankle bones, a breathable mesh toe box to allow for ventilation and accommodate female toe shape, and a supercritical foam and Pebax plate midsole to keep our legs going when the going gets tough. Heddas has 3 shoe models designed for different sessions: the Alma Cruise for long runs, the Alma Tempo for training days, and the Alma Speed for pushing the pace. Celebrate the outstanding performances at the Olympics with your own pair of Heddas. Use the code FEISTY20 for 20% off at heddas.com. That's Feisty20 for 20% off at heddas.com.
Kelly.
All right, we've got some sports left. You know how we've been joking. I met up some friends yesterday at track who have just landed. Like she's like, oh my God, I just got in and then I slept for like 10 hours and I feel great. And I was like, I haven't slept 10 hours in a week. No. So people are getting here because there's still a lot of sports left.
Yes. Okay.
Lots of
I am
sports
excited
left.
about the sports that are
Yeah.
left. Yeah.
Okay, here's my big. I know the U.S. won their semifinal game against Germany.
Okay.
Very
Oh
exciting.
God, we're holding out hope.
It's US versus Brazil in the final now.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
They won their
okay.
semifinal game against Germany. It was the only the third Olympic semifinal or final to go to overtime. It was very dramatic. I was watching it a little on my phone at track. And then Brazil won the other semi. They beat Spain.
What?
Which is crazy.
So we have a US-Brazil final.
US-Brazil
We were
final.
hoping for a US-Canada final, but unfortunately,
I actually just wanted US-France. But yeah.
We're talking about soccer, by the way.
Soccer.
Everybody. Our US what? No, we did not want US-France. We wanted US.
Well, US-Canada was on the same side, so that would have been impossible.
It was impossible. We've been over this.
We have been over
this.
I forgot. Yeah. But we have tickets to the finals. Now it's going to be US-Brazil, and I'm going to have to go to the Nike store and deck myself out in a flag.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, obviously. I'm going to have to be more annoying. It's going to be great. It's actually fascinating. I was laughing to myself, and it's one of the jokes, I was like, a US-Brazil final? What is this, the 90s? It's so weird that Spain got out. It's so weird that France got out and that Canada got out.
Yeah.
So it's been a little bit of a wild tournament, but that's super exciting. Very much looking forward to that. We have tickets to that. We have tickets to diving.
We're going to diving today. Diving when I was a kid was my personal favorite.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, we had a springboard. We're going to springboard. We had a springboard diving board in my yard. So that was my thing. I spent the whole summer teaching myself to do front flips off it.
When I was a kid, after whatever Olympics I was obsessed with when I was a kid, as I think a lot of us were, I was like, oh, I'm going to teach myself how to dive. And I jumped backwards off a pool and landed on my chin on the cement.
Oh no, Kelly.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So that was one of my first ER visits when I was a kid.
Oh really?
Yep.
Kelly the Olympian.
Yeah.
Mini Kelly. Trying to be.
It was blood everywhere.
Oh,
yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, I never had an injury from my springboard days, but I will tell you, it makes me laugh now because, our pool, it was in the backyard, but it was sort of hard to see from the house, and so the number of times in the summer I would go back into the back, be doing front flips off of a diving board when I was 10, and my parents. Who knows where they were?
No idea.
Completely unsupervised. It's such a Gen X childhood that I had.
Oh, I mean, the things part of me is whatever, it's fine, right? The amount of things we made up. We made up a lot of Olympic sports when we were kids. We had we made up little Olympic games, me and my sister. A lot of our sports, a lot of our games and sports we made up had very intense rules and often ended in injury. And it's now if you try to explain them, parents would be like, your parents, our parents had no idea what we were doing. Yeah.
I was I'm just going swimming. And meanwhile, I'm doing dangerous shit in the backyard.
So good times. So we are looking forward to both of those things. I think we're going to take we're still looking for tickets for Thursday and Friday, but we might take a sports break tomorrow, try and talk to some other people.
Yeah. We're going to head to Champions Park.
We're going to Champions Park.
Finally, we'll get our Champions Park viewing.
And there's still, it's just the tickets have gotten intense to try and get them because everyone wants some tickets.
I'm going to try to get some women's weightlifting. I'd like to see that
Friday.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll see. Fingers crossed for me.
I really want to see climbing. So that's what I've been trying to get.
Oh yeah. That would be amazing.
So, so there's still 4 more days of the Olympics left, guys. Stay with us.
We're here.